Welcome to Turkey Courier. I am Sarp Duyar and I'll be hosting this podcast with Erkin Erguney. We'll be talking about all political and economic news related to Turkey.
Hi Sarp, how are you doing?
The same old. We have a lot of very interesting stuff happening to Turkey this week. The Karabakh
And every
region,
week, right?
Yeah, and every week. The Karabakh region is flaring up. There is an actual physical heated war between Azerbaijan and Armenia and the autonomous region at Artsakh, but we'll be talking about these.
Atsa.
Artsakh.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so let's get going. Well, obviously the first and most important news is the clash between Armenia and Artsakh and Azerbaijan. Would you like to give a very brief introduction?
So this Artsakh region is called with many different names. One is mountainous Karabakh, called Nagorny Karabakh in Russian. The reason for this is that this is a region that has one mountainous region and one rather flat region. And the background story of this was that this was an undecided territory populated with Armenians and Azerbaijanis alike. But during the Stalin era, during the Soviet Union, this region was supposed to be a buffer zone, thought of a buffer zone by Stalin. And the flat Karabakh was given to Azerbaijan, and mountainous Karabakh was given to Armenia to be a buffer zone between Turkey and Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan and Turkey share kinship relations. The language intelligibility between Turkish and Azerbaijani is around 70, sometimes 60%. And it is mostly seen by Turkish people, Turkish policymakers, Ankara, as the closest Turkic community that's out there. And Stalin's thought was that there's also a Republic of Nakhchivan in between. This Nagorny Karabakh, the mountainous Karabakh region, was supposed to be a buffer zone between the Turkic region, the Turkic lands that's going on with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and so on. And this was formulated as such. But then in 1991, after the dissolution of Soviet Union, there was a lot of clashes for the governance of this region.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why Azerbaijan lost the war against Armenia was basically mostly because of the internal power struggle between the Aliyev family and the counter faction of power politics.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the internal coup that was happening in Azerbaijan, the war was lost, and the mountainous Karabakh region is under, I'm saying this under international standards, international recognized as invasion of Armenia. For example, Karabakh region, mountainous Karabakh region, known as Artsakh Republic in Armenia, is an autonomous republic that is not recognized by Armenia. And Armenia actually said that they will recognize Artsakh Republic after the clashes. So this was some sort of a de facto understanding after the war in 1991. This is called a frozen conflict in international relations. The conflict was not resolved per se, but then due to the conjunctural reasons between Azerbaijan and Armenia, both were focused on building up their states after years of Russian domination. This was left alone. But we can see now that mostly, I think it's mostly due to Azerbaijan, that seeing some sort of weakness in the Azerbaijani side and the international community side, and some sort of miscalculated perception at that they have decided to take action towards this.
Now that action is what is interesting, because as you said, the region is actually quite mountainous, and the potential military incursion there is very hard. Azerbaijan's side has been suffering a whole deal of losses, whereas not gaining as much. My question here is that why did the Azerbaijani government decided that after 30 years the time is now and we should act? Like, what did they hope to gain? Didn't they calculate how hard it would be to push through such a mountainous region? Did they count on the Turkish support? What do you think?
I think there's several reasons at this. I think what Azerbaijan was calculating was some sort of disinterest due to the COVID-19 crisis. And in addition, Azerbaijani army, due to the immense petroleum and other natural resources gains that the state has is much more powerful compared to the Armenian army. It mostly dominates in terms of every kind of military aspect. I think only in terms of attack helicopters and F-16s or assault jets that it has some sort of a tie with the Armenian army. So in terms of military conquest of the region, Azerbaijani army has a very clear advantage towards the Armenians. And I think why Azerbaijan decided that this was the time to act is that so states have some sort of a thinking in terms of their state traditions. Turkey also has such a mentality. When you see some sort of a disinterest in the global community, you can decide that it is a time to act, it is a time to solve a problem. And I think Azerbaijan saw some sort of a chance in the international community's stance, but I think that is part of miscalculation. The COVID-19 crisis did not cause the international community to look away. It actually now, the entire world's agenda is focused on Mountainous Karabakh. So I think there is a miscalculation at that, but I think if it would come to one-on-one clash between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan would be clearly the winner of this military conflict.
I see. Now let's move on to the Turkey's role in this conflict. Armenian side has rapidly called for an international blockage of Turkey's involvement in this conflict, but we still see some of the Turkish support seeping through the cracks. For instance, there's a lot of reports suggesting that a Syrian mercenary group led by Turkey was being sent to Azerbaijan to give military support.
So Turkey has been growingly assertive in its international relations stance. So firstly, starting with 2011 Syrian civil war, it started to some sort of, you can call meddle, or you can say also influence the decisions of the neighbor countries. It hasn't been so until 1980s and maybe late 1980s at that. Turkey has been getting a lot of experience, both in Syria, in Somalia, in Libya, and other countries, also in Qatar, by some chance. And actually, it is interesting to add, I think, for the international community, also for the English-speaking community, that Azerbaijan and Turkey relations were not that good. So, for example, if a Turkish citizen wants to go to Azerbaijan, even though the Turkish side sees, and the discourse is also like this, Azerbaijanis as brothers, literally brothers, they call them Kardesh Vatan. We still need a visa to go to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijani policy has always been a little distant towards Turkey because Azerbaijan, due to the Aliyev family and the Soviet retinue that that governs Azerbaijan, is a little distance towards the openly Islamic and maybe democratically Islamic values of Turkey. So Aliyev family was not known to be very prone to accepting what Turkey says. So that's why I'm taking the news that Turkey has been sending Syrian mercenaries to Azerbaijan with a grain of salt, because Azerbaijan and the governing family of Azerbaijan has been very distant, very skeptical towards such aspects, especially the Islamic extremism. And the overriding, the very dominant view about the Syrian mercenaries is that most of the people outside in the international community sees these Syrian mercenaries as Islamic extremists. And I don't think Azerbaijan, given that they have the military superiority against Armenia, would actually accept Syrian mercenaries. I think the core of the deal, I think there should be some truth. If some people are saying that this is happening, I think it should have at least a sliver of truth in it. And I think these people are actually either Syrian high-level mercenaries, Syrian high-level jihadists, or however you call them, or Turkish officials at that are providing military advisory positions, because they have been getting a lot of experience in both in guerrilla warfare, both in interstate warfare, and I think they could be very influential and very helpful in terms of an actual conflict, because Azerbaijani army has not been in such a conflict in the last 30 years. And I think Turkey's role, in addition to this, is that it's growing more and more assertive in its relations, and it's trying to find a way to open up to other regions. And maybe the core of the crux of the question could be that for Middle East, Turkey is not being able to get the advantages that it coveted, that it desired, because the Arab Spring did not yield the result that Turkey was hoping for. And maybe now we're seeing Turkey is moving towards the Central Asia and the Caucasus region, a little bit more assertion than before, because it hasn't been able to get the success that it was desiring in the Middle Eastern region.
The final thing I would ask is, how do you see the offensive by Azerbaijan progressing? Because as far as I have seen, it is quite slow, and there's a lot of casualties, especially in very expensive military hardware on Azerbaijani side. I haven't seen them capturing potentially their goal at least in the first week. And if what you said is true and they're very reluctant on the Turkish help, do you think that would change if their expected success doesn't come?
Well, yes, that is a very correct, actually, analysis, I would say. The Azerbaijani army hasn't been able to get the outcomes that I think it was desiring to have, but still, I think this is some sort of a showcase also. Azerbaijan is trying to push for the prominence that it was desiring for. So there's also another side of the story that hasn't been told very well, I think. So Nagorny Karabakh, the mountainous Karabakh region, is actually some sort of an island inside Azerbaijan. The rest of the territory to the west, that's bordering the Republic of Nakhchivan, is actually by the international community seen as a territory of Azerbaijan, but under de facto Armenian rule. So what Azerbaijan and Turkey has been pushing, their thesis on international relations, is that Armenia should leave these regions. But then Armenia will face the same questions that Azerbaijan is facing today, because the parts that Armenia has invaded, I'm putting this in quotation marks, invaded is doing the same effect that Azerbaijan is trying to have. It is mainly connecting mountainous Karabakh region with the mainland Armenia. But then this is also what Azerbaijan is trying to have. It wants to connect with Nakhchivan Republic and also with Turkey. It wants to destroy the corridor that connects mountainous Karabakh with Armenia and have its own corridor connecting to Nakhchivan and Turkey. So I think this is some sort of also a claim of assertion, a claim of saying, some sort of saying, I'm also here. I also want a piece of the pie, just like Turkey is saying in Eastern Mediterranean as such. And I'm not sure if Azerbaijani army or Azerbaijani government, Aliyev family, is trying to have the territorial gains, or is it trying to prove a point? That's what I'm thinking.
Turkey has been clashing with Russian-backed governments in Syria and in Libya, and Armenia has been traditionally backed by Russians as well. What do you think the outcome of a potential Turkish support to Azerbaijan would be? Or do you think Russia has already thought of stops that they can just pull against the Turkish support?
This again is a very good question that outlines and underlines the change in international relations perspective and strategy in the long run. So Russia and Turkey has always in history been traditional enemies, natural enemies. And we have thought during the last 5 years or so that Russia and Turkey might come to a convergence of interests in the region. But we are seeing again that this is not the case. Traditional and geographical constraints and alliances that Russia and Turkey does run against each other. And Russia supports Armenia. I think this is due to very strategic thinking. And Turkey supports Azerbaijan, of course. And also we are seeing such clashes in Libya, in Syria, etc. And I think this, in the end, will result with the breaking of Russian-Turkish alliance or understanding in the region that has been present in the last 5 years or so. I'm not sure if this will be the start of the Untergang, the downfall of Russian-Turkish alliance in the region, but I think it has a strong possibility of being so. At least it will be one of the many reasons that will undermine the Russian-Turkish alliance and cooperation in this regard. Armenia is some sort of an outpost in Caucasus for Russia, because it has been in war with Georgia. In 2008, it has actually invaded parts of Georgia with South Ossetia and previously with Abkhazia. And now in Armenia, we have a Russian base of, I think, almost 20,000 soldiers, some sort of a check or balance in the local politics and local power play. And Russia, of course, would not be very happy to lose this kind of a choking point to keep the region in balance, the region in check. So I think the Russian support towards Armenia will increase, and Turkey will increasingly try to connect Azerbaijan with Turkey. But I think there will come a point. I don't think this strategy will work. And that's, I think, why Turkey is not very much investing in Azerbaijani success. Because Azerbaijan ruling family has always been distant with Turkey. And they know, because of the mutual intelligibility between languages and other trade linkages, etc., if Azerbaijani mainland has such a strong connection with Turkey, it will slowly become closer and closer to Turkey. And Ankara will be able to influence Azerbaijan more and more, and that is something that Aliyev family would not want, I think. So that also could be why it could be a claim to say, oh yes, I'm also here, I'm also a player in this local politics, rather than actually providing a corridor with Turkey.
All right, let's move on to another area where Turkey and Russia clashes. We have, as you said, completely forgotten about the Turkish entanglement in Syria. And you have written a paragraph about why that is one of the most important, if not the most foreign policy issue that Turkey has right now. Why don't you give us a very quick background on what is happening or what is forgotten in Idlib region in Syria?
Yeah, sure. So in Idlib, we have basically an invasion of Turkey of Syrian territory. This is according to international law, because Idlib is de jure, in international relations terms, a part of Syrian Arab Republic. And Turkish army has been basically governing this area for the last several years. And the reason why this is the biggest Trojan horse in Turkish foreign policy is that there are around, I think, there are estimates, but between 1.8 and 3 million Syrians living in Idlib region. And these are mostly opposition people, the people who have run away from Assad regime, and they have been residing in Idlib hoping for a change of government. And if Idlib region is lost, these people will either have to integrate into Syria with the Assad regime, or they have to flee the country. And this is a big, big problem, because it seems Syrian revolution will not come to fruition. Assad has won, and it will not lose if anything extreme does not happen. So these people, I think if I were one of these people, I would choose to flee. I would choose to run away to another country. And this probably most likely to be Turkey. And Turkish public does not think very highly of Syrians after so many years of living together. They have been seen by the Turkish public as a burden on public finances, on their personal individual lives. Syrian people are seen as backwards in Turkey. They have been seen as, for example, harassing the women, taking away jobs, etc. And most of them say either they don't even want to stay in Turkey, they want to just go to Europe, etc. So this is a big problem for the government as well, because of the public pressure that it will build. So Turkey and Ankara has been doing all they could to stop this influx of refugees happening again. But given the circumstances on the field, this is very unlikely because Idlib region under a Turkish invasion, it is very unlikely to be sustainable because Russians are pushing to make Turkish army leave Idlib. Assad government in Damascus is trying really hard to build some sort of a perception that Turkey is the invasion force. It some sort of is in international terms, but if you think about the people living there, I don't think the Syrians living in Idlib see Turkish army as an invasionary force because they have some sort of a difference with the general Syrian public. And I think that why this is the biggest problem in Turkish foreign policy at the moment is that Ankara is stuck between the rock and a hard place. It does not know what to do, and neither does it have a sustainable policy. Will it leave Idlib, or will it stay? Will it annex Idlib and incorporate these Syrians into Turkey, or will it build some sort of autonomous region where people staying there will be will forced to stay there, etc. This is very uncertain, and it is day by day imposing a big burden in Turkish finances, Turkish public finances, because an invasion operation and maintaining this is expensive. And this region has been bombarded and it has seen a lot of social migration, etc. So it is not a very lucrative region to be in at the moment. So Turkish finances, Ankara has to sustain it, has to finance pretty much everything, the social services, etc. And this is not sustainable. Turkish foreign policy and Ankara should find a solution to find a long-term solution to fix this problem, either leave Idlib or somehow incorporate it with the long-term plans.
The way I see the Turkish position on Idlib is that Ankara right now is using Idlib as a dumping point for the excess refugees it took. I think 6 or 7 hours ago, Erdogan made a statement boasting about how they were resettling refugees in the Idlib zone. Now, I 100% agree that this is not sustainable, but I also fail to see how Ankara would leave Idlib, at least without making a deal with Assad. And Assad knows, at least in terms of Idlib, he'll be the one who has the leverage. It is, as you said, potentially the Turkey's Vietnam.
Well, pretty much so. It could easily become Turkey's Vietnam because Turkey previously signaled that if there wouldn't be Assad at the helm, they would be open to negotiations. But because they have built such a public figure of portraying Assad as some sort of evil figure, I mean, I also think that he is an evil figure, but still, they have built such an image and they cannot back from what they said because of the heavy investments in that area. And it is pretty much the biggest Trojan horse in the Turkish foreign policy at the moment because there seems to be no viable solution to this. I mean, even when you think solely on international relations terms, you cannot find, even on theory, even on paper, you cannot find a viable solution to this. So this I think it will create a lot of problems, both with Russia, both with Syria, and this also has the potential to become Turkey's Vietnam. Why I'm saying so is that the people in Idlib, the Syrians in Idlib, they have some predispositions towards other beliefs. So for example, they are from the opposition. And for example, there has been a lot of clashes between the locals in Idlib, between the Turkish army and Russian army, because Turkey and Russia have been doing joint patrols in the region. And because the people in Idlib see Russia as a hostile force, and they see Turkish army with them, so they attack them together. So this could easily turn against Turkey, even though they have been spending a lot of money, manpower, and military power to sustain this area.
All right. Moving on to yet another area where Turkey is clashing with Russia, Libya. Libya, as you said, is in a process of cooling off from a heated and protracted war. What is your take on how this cooling off period will endure, or if it will endure? My question also includes how, for instance, European powers such as France or Italy would look at such a cooled off but a torn Libya.
So Libya is an interesting case. I was thinking of it as that I was thinking that it will be the only domain in which Turkey has been successful in terms of its foreign policy and military policy in the Arab region. The Sarraj regime in Tripoli has been winning the war, and it's reached Sirte, the port town that has been responsible in distributing the petroleum towards world global markets, but it has stopped at that point. It was going very successful militarily, but at one point, both either Turkish side or the Libyan side decided that they should give diplomacy a chance, and they stopped the military incursion towards Tobruk, where the Haftar's parliament is located. And once they stopped, the military incursion did not resume. I think this was also due to the strong opposition from Gulf states and Egypt, because they were threatening that they will also be present in the table. They will also be present in the area militarily if these military incursion continues. And I think that was one of the major mistakes in not calling the bluff of the Gulf states and Egypt. This could also pose some sort of risks, but then I think in the end it will result with Turkish losses in the region, because it seems to me more and more that Haftar, the parliament, the power base in Tobruk in the east, will reconcile with the west, because Haftar regime has decided to lift the embargo on petroleum. So now Libya, with it has the 9th biggest reserves of petroleum in the world. It has started again exporting. So now the public coffers are again filling up with foreign currency that Libya was very much in need of. So this shows some sort of an understanding, because what you do with an enemy force is that you try to choke their finances. And that was what Haftar was doing with the military force that it had. So Tripoli, I think around one and a half years before, was very much in dire straits because of the public finances. The petroleum revenue was stopped. But now it has resumed again. And this signals to me that an understanding between the East and West in Libya is underway. And I think on the table, there will be a very basic question. The Eastern power base will demand that Turkey should be left out of the question. And I think Western side will have very much of an incentive to say yes to this. Because Turkey does not have, in contrast to Syria, it does not have its army in Libya. It has only advisors and technological assets in Libya. So it does not have some sort of a physical check on what the Libyan government says. So I think Tripoli will have much more of an incentive to reconcile with the East and then establish the country as one again. So I think Turkey will be losing once more.
Mm-hmm. I think Sarraj's resignation is also a sign of this cooling off resulting in some sort of reconciliation. I very much think that you're on the right here. As you said, Turkey doesn't have a physical force in Libya, let alone a border as it has on Syria. Turkey will need to give up on its Mediterranean deal with Libya, maybe in the long term as well.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. If we would come to resignation of Sarraj, there's also some sort of internal power play in there, because there was also this person called Fatih Bashaga. He has been very much popular, and also in the western parts of Libya, and also has maintained some sort of contacts with the East. And this process started with him being taken away from his position, and then Sarraj could not resist the pressure that he had after Fatih Bashaga left, mostly. So there's also internal political power play at there, because we should also remember that Libya is not a nation state as we know. It is basically some sort of a confederation at best of tribes. So there are a lot of people who switch alliances, etc. So actually Sarraj's job in the West is very hard, as is Haftar's. He is trying to keep everyone happy, and that's very hard, as you would know from your personal life as well. You cannot keep everyone happy. And to keep everyone happy, you either have to give them money, you have to give them jobs or some sort of power in the region. And this is becoming increasingly hard in Libya.
All right, and probably the last international relations topic of today, Turkey wants to buy French air defense systems. Let's talk a bit about how or if this purchasing will happen and what are the underlying factors in such an attempt. I think Turkey is using basically purchase of military armaments as a diplomatic tool, albeit with limited success, as we saw it on the Russian case. What is your take on this?
So yeah, you put it very aptly. I wouldn't call it a diplomatic tool. I would call it much more bluntly as a bait towards the West, as some sort of like blink. Hey, wink, wink. Do you still want to be friends? Mm-hmm. Turkey has been also using the Patriots as such. What they realized I think what Ankara has realized with arms sales is that arms sales is a domain of public policy. It seems to be, to us, it's some sort of a private sector transaction, because all these countries are actually, all those companies are actually private sector enterprises. But still, due to the sums being really high, the states also want to stake in this. They have some sort of an incentive in realizing these transactions. So the process of the Patriots, Turkey, I think, initially really wholeheartedly wanted to buy the Patriots. But then Obama administration did not allow this to happen due to the democratical concerns, etc., other political concerns about Turkey. And then Turkey has started bluffing towards the US using S-400s, the Russian air defense systems, as some sort of, again, a bait, a bluff. But then it came to a point where it had to actually buy these stuff. And they are still not activated, which is some sort of farcical understanding of history. If you look at that way, as Marx says, like if it's repeated once, it's history. If it's repeated twice, it's a farce. Basically, I think I'm misquoting, but still, you get the idea. And now I think Turkey is again winking towards the West, like, hey, the Russia thing was just a fling. We are actually friends with you. You are my girlfriend. Russia has never been the one. But I think it will be very hard to convince the Europeans or the Western alliance to this, because what Turkey, I think, is miscalculating is that Western community, the Western democracies also have something called the public. And the public has been increasingly seeing Turkey as some sort of belligerent, illiberal, undemocratic force. And if, for example, Macron or Merkel would go with a deal with Turkey, there would be a huge public pressure towards them. If you be Merkel, Turkey would probably be the last country that you'll be selling arms to, that you would want to sell arms to, because the general understanding about Turkey and Turkish foreign policy is that if you look at it from a German, for example, German tabloid or German newspaper, that it is invading Syria, it is butchering the Kurds, etc. Even though I think the reality is different from this, that is the perception that you have in the West. And I think now the wink that Turkish capital, Turkish policymakers are giving towards France is again showing a very deep misunderstanding about the Western politics and how they act. And I think this will also help in ossifying the Western position on Turkey, that they will think that, okay, Turkey is trying to buy us out. But I don't think they can do that. I don't think even if Macron wanted to sell French air defense systems or European air defense systems to Turkey, he does not have the power to do so. Mm-hmm. But still, it shows, I think, also a deep understanding of Western politics, of Western alliances politics. It also shows some sort of an inclination towards the Western alliance, because Turkey, I think, is a natural ally of the West in the region. We have very much overriding interests in the region with Russia, with Gulf countries, which should be the natural enemies of the Western alliance. So I think there is some sort of a mismatch, an interesting one at that, that you have some, in realpolitik terms, you should be doing an alliance with Turkey. But then, due to this public pressure that you have in these countries, you cannot, because Turkey has been acting weird, and also in terms of public appearance, newspaper coverage, journalistic coverage, etc. Turkey is seen as a belligerent force, even though I think compared to Russia, compared to Gulf countries, it is very much a democratic one. But Ankara has been very slow in understanding this. It has been very, very passive in countering this perception. So I think this is the problem that we are facing at the moment. There is a mismatch between the reality and the perception.
Yeah, that's a very fair, and if you ask me, also quite accurate statement. And lastly, it's about whether Turkey has enough money to buy these missile defense systems at all. Our topic is the new economic program unveiled by the Minister of Finance, Berat Albayrak. What are your takes on that?
Well, as always, now our listeners, our audience will not be able to see the sneer on our face, but as always, it has not been very satisfactory. Whenever the current administration came up with something called the new approach to things, it has been very unlikely to fill the concept of. So when you see the program itself, you start to think, okay, what is actually new in this? That is a question that no one can answer, I think, in Turkey. I haven't seen anyone that could answer it. Again, we saw that the general overriding principle that if you don't give someone power, they can't achieve anything. They can try to deceive people, but they will also be increasingly less likely to do so. So what Albayrak, the finance minister, is trying to do is to deceive the foreign markets. It has been trying to show that, okay, we are doing stuff. We realize the problem. Turkish lira is very volatile. Turkish economy is on the brink of collapse. Public finance is going very, very bad. But he's trying to show, okay, we're doing stuff to solve this. But then when you listen to the measures that they will undertake, you say, okay, I think the situation is much more complex than this. There are a lot of systemic problems. There are a lot of problems that are caused by the very same government that you're in. So Turkey, I think, will be facing a big economic crisis due to the irrational take. Not very much irrational, but then I think there's a conflict of interest that also outlines another important discussion in politics. So in democracies, you're supposed to uphold the views, uphold the interests of the state, uphold the interest of the public in general in long term. But with the democracies, your initial interest is to get re-elected. So that's why Turkey has been pushing for such sort of irrational, again in quotation marks, monetary policy. It has been trying to push for growth and employment in the short run because they want to get re-elected. But then this employment and growth in the short run is actually hurting the economy of the country in the long run. And you can see this with them pushing for lower interest rates, even though there's skyrocketing inflation and very volatile foreign currency, etc. So this is not sustainable, and this is not a problem. I think it is a problem that they're trying to solve, but they cannot solve with the predispositions that they have in the party, in AKP, in Justice and Development Party, because they want to get re-elected. And this is also, I think, this is a problem that I have been seeing in also a vast array of countries. And I think this will be one of the biggest discussions in monetary policy and economics for the years to come, and on how to reconcile the long-term interests of a country and the public versus the party's interests, the political party's interests.
Well, I think this was it from this week. It has been a hell of a ride.
As every week has been.
Thank you so much to our audience. Thank you for listening, and we'll be seeing you next week.
Thank you very much, Sarp, for asking all the questions and reading the newsletter with very high level of attention that I would not expect from Generation Z member. And I should also thank the audience, but also thank Sarp again, because he has been doing all the technical stuff back there, editing, recording, pretty much everything that you see. I'm only talking here. The rest is on Sarp. So thanks, Sarp. And thanks to all of our listeners, of course.
No worries. See you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.